Busy week in Montreal, and it's understandable why when you look at the team's record. Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens is back to tell us all the newest news emanating from Montreal as the Canadiens try to right the ship. All that coming up on this episode of the Locked On NHL podcast.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, glad to be with you, and thank everybody for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens. Laura, you've been here in the very recent past, but so much going on up in La Belle Provence that we had to have you back. And wow, what a week it's been for the Canadiens.
It seems like only last week I was telling you that they weren't going to be firing the coach. When Jeff Gorton was hired initially in his press conference way back, I want to say now it's 2 months. It's been 2 months. He said that there was no intention of changing the head coach. However, the management team, once they brought Kent Hughes on, once they went on a road trip with the team, got to know them a little bit. Once there was a break, and they came back from the break and you didn't really see anything better than what was already going on, they decided to take that step and relieve Dominique Ducharme of his duties because they didn't want to wait to change the direction of this team. And they thought, it wasn't a situation where you just had to wait out 5 or 6 games. It was a situation where there were still at that point 37 games to go in the season. And they wanted to make sure that they were instilling the culture that they wanted to instill as soon as possible. They weren't going to wait until the draft. They weren't going to wait until the trade deadline and all the pieces were gone. And Martin St. Louis has a history with both. Kent Hughes used to be his agent. Jeff Gorton was obviously working for the Rangers when Martin St. Louis was a Ranger. And it was very outside the box in terms of, yes, it's a white guy, but who has previous experience in hockey, but he had no head coaching experience at the professional. He coached Pee Wee. That was the end of his experience. He was, he was coaching his sons and stuff. And so when in his introductory press conference, he said that he didn't care about the term or the money. He just wanted the opportunity. So they named him interim head coach. And it's clear that this is an audition for the future, right? He wanted the chance. And it's very unusual, obviously, for somebody to get a chance like that. The stars align this way. I think it was a bold decision by the management. I do think that, in terms of demographic, obviously, it's not any different than any other head coaching job in the NHL. They didn't think too far outside the box, but the idea that it was somebody who's not had head coaching experience at the professional level at all, like not even with Hockey Canada or anything like that. And it's been refreshing to listen to him talk. So far, I've been glued to the introductory press conference, the post games, the after practice press conferences. He's got an interesting hockey mind. And he's got an interesting mentality. I think for me, the biggest thing so far, other than the introductory press conference, is yesterday after the game. So for anyone who hasn't been following, the Canadiens lost his first 2 games as head coach. However, if you have been watching it all, there was a massive improvement in both games on top of the rest of the season, over the rest of the season. So at the end of the last game against Columbus, which is at this point, we're recording before the Buffalo Sabres game on Sunday afternoon. So we've experienced that Saturday game. He said he asked about the games against the Capitals, the previous game. They were allowing less dangerous shots to the Capitals, as they were building up over the course of that. And against Columbus, they were allowing more dangerous shots, more scoring chances. And the first thing he said was, that's something that I'm going to take the blame for because I was instructing the team to do such and such a thing. And so that to me was the most refreshing thing ever, because it's been a while in Montreal since we've had a coach take full responsibility and not say, it's on the players to do better. It's in the room, which is something that we were hearing from Dominique Ducharme. It's something that we were hearing from Marc Bergevin. It's something that we're used to hearing, is that the players get thrown under the bus. And in this case, Martin's trying to teach them this thing. And in the course of that, they were allowing more dangerous shots. So he, I think, is a player's coach, but it's interesting the way that he sees the game, the way that he's described how he coaches. He says he doesn't believe in systems, he believes in concepts. So it's a really fun and interesting time in Montreal as we watch what this guy, who we have no idea what his coaching style is, come in and impart on the team. And so far, a bunch of guys on the team look like new men.
Do you think, looking back, that Ducharme lost the room, or was it just like that he just didn't have the tools to work with there?
I think he wasn't able to think of anything new, because the players themselves, it's mixed in Montreal now. There's a lot of drama because Jeff Petrie didn't say anything to say, thanks to Ducharme, whereas Brendan Gallagher, Tyler Toffoli, they open their like appearances by saying, I want to thank Dom for what he did for us and all of that. Jeff Petrie didn't say anything along those lines, and neither did Cole Caulfield. So now there's a lot of drama in the Montreal media and fan base as to, that wasn't classy, or there was something wrong between Dominique Ducharme and between Cole Caulfield and Jeff Petrie. But I think at the end of the day, he didn't have anything new. That was his downfall. The same things kept happening over and over again, and he kept trying the same things. And he's succeeded at every level except for the NHL, except obviously they went on that run. But if you look at the regular season before that run, it was still the same issues. Defensive coverage was a mess. The power play was non-functional. The penalty kill was awful. If they didn't get goaltending, they lost every game, which they didn't this season because they're two important goaltenders. They're two main goaltenders that, the backup who became the starter and the starting goaltender have been injured and out. So, I mean, that to me is not a recipe for success. But if you look at the two games against Columbus and the Capitals, they've allowed less shots and goals, like right off the bat. That's an initial improvement. And I really do think that they just kept trying the same thing over and over again, and it wasn't working, and the players were getting frustrated. And there's a lot in, people keep talking about Jeff Petrie having a bad season or Cole Caulfield's rookie season being ruined or anything like that. And part of it, I think, has just been that an experienced coach would have tried new things to get them going. And that's why it's interesting to me to see if Martin St. Louis, without his experience, if he's going to get both going. So far, Cole Caulfield has scored 3 goals. One of them was called off because somebody else was offside. But he scored 3 goals, and he had scored 1 goal for the entire season leading up to that. So I think that so far, there seems to be some sort of relaxation, and Jeff Petrie seems to be playing a little bit better, although he did make a huge mistake that cost them the game against Columbus. But, I think it remains to be seen. I think that it was just a lack of new ideas. They seemed to like him. He seemed to be popular with the players, except that there were just no new ideas.
What do you think Martin St. Louis has to show in these last 35, 40 games of the season to make this a permanent hire?
I think he has to show an improvement in habits and the way they play. So he's insisting that he doesn't believe in systems. He believes in concepts. And he said that doesn't mean that there's no structure when he's talking about concepts. So if you see the players, they might not win all the games. They're still missing a good chunk of decent NHL player, whether they're stars who left or who are injured or whatever. Like, the roster's an incomplete roster. There's going to be a lot of guys traded at the trade deadline or before then as well. So if you see that every player on the team is improving with their on-ice habits, whether it's defensive coverage, whether it's being aware of where everybody is, whether it's being more creative offensively, I think that will garner him another shot, because Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes have said that they want a more dynamic, more speedy, more skilled team that has good habits. So if you see, you might not get a lot of wins. You might I think they're going to end the season with about 13 wins, to be honest. I don't know if there's going to be much more than that. They've only got 5 to go. I don't think it's too tall of an order over 35 games, but that's where they're going to land. I don't think they're going to climb out of lottery contention, but I think if you see every player on that team performing their overall daily in-game habits are better, they have that confidence, I think that's what the management team wants, and that's how he will get his shot for a permanent job.
Excellent. Laurel, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
So our podcast is Locked On Canadiens, available wherever you get your podcasts. We are also on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. My co-host Scott Matla is at Scott Matla, and I am at The Active Stick.
All right, Laura, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Gil.